There are some games I get to the end of and go, right, I'm going to need to sit with Kingy for an hour to understand what just happened here. What did it mean and how did it happen? Kingy, there have been years where the semis are a bit soft. No, not this time. No soft semis here. Welcome.
How good was it? It was unbelievable, Gerard, and we did Friday night together, which was fun. Seeing the corn ride the emotions up and down with what was going on field. And we'll get to the actual game, but just the theatre of the pre-game and then the build-up, the tension, you could feel in the town about what are Port going to do. Is this the end of Ken? What can he do with this group that's undermanned? So there's a lot of tension in the town, and you could see the Hawks fans rolling in, just bullish about what was going to happen. They thought they were going to win by 10 goals, so they were just rolling into town. And rightly so. I mean, the previous few weeks have been really positive, so why wouldn't you feel like that when your team's on a roll? And then the GWS Giants game was just unreal. Like, you've never seen a performance like it for 60 minutes and then just complete capitulation. And Brisbane, and it was great to see Fags carry on after the game.
It was.
That's the ride it can take you on.
Yep. And how Kenny would wish he'd carried on like that.
Yeah.
Just channel the emotions there. Anyway, your King's Gambit could be your snap judgment. What are you feeling most passionately that you would like to get on the table?
Well, what are we doing to Kenny? Seriously. Our game throws up quirks. Generally, they're emotionally based. This is a different one. I don't think there's any real spite in what was going on. I can't believe the AFL have come down so heavy with the $20,000 fine. I think that's just way overs. This is a marketing dream from here on in, Gerard. You can have a lot of fun with this in the back half of the final series. But just Ken's been under enormous pressure, and we've ridden that all year. And when he was with Sarah Jones, post the St Kilda game, the emotion of just pouring out, you could see the fine line that he was on, the small margins he was working in. And I feel it was a little bit the same on the weekend. I think if there's ever a time for the AFL to support the coaches, the one person at the front of a football club who's got all the shining lights on him and all the eyeballs of the football community, this was the time. Yes, Ken, you didn't handle it well. Conversation behind the scenes between those that matter at the AFL and Ken Hinkley and those that matter at Port Adelaide, and move on. Don't put him in front of the shining lights again. You've done the wrong thing. This is all your fault. It wasn't that bad an offence. Don't single this one man out again and make us all sit back now for 3 days and talk about Ken Hinkley. I just think it was an opportunity for the game to support the guys that are at the front of the queue for a footy club. Alice nailed it this morning. It was part of it. Hawthorn have been asking for this. They've been asking for the whack between the eyes, for someone to fire back, and you know what? Someone did. And Sam Mitchell's handled himself really poorly. The carry on there, just wrong. Hey, he should have just said, hey, I need to talk to Jack. This is more on us than on them. Yep, they've got a few things wrong. But I just think I'm more about the game supporting the coach. Had a chance, let it slip.
That's the King's Gambit. All right, the big issue, was it more Brisbane or more the Giants? I got to the end of the game and watched it back yesterday. Giants unsound with a lead. They're going to spend the summer on the psychiatrist's couch. 44 points down. I've never seen a team look more gone at 44 points down than Brisbane did, and then it changed all of a sudden. And then the last quarter felt like it was inevitable that Brisbane was going to hit the front, and then it was just a question of, well, would that free the Giants up of the paralysis? And they couldn't do anything about it in the last 2 and a bit minutes. So the big issue, was this more the Lions or the Giants?
Well, you have to say it's more the Giants. And people just hold the barrage of texts having a crack at me about Fags or wherever you want to go with this discussion, right? Because I just want to read some stuff that Horney has been tracking for a while now regarding the Giants. So they've had quarters where it all falls apart regularly over the last 2 months. So in the opposition coach's box or the opposition planning, that the stay in the game mentality is ever present because they've always got a quarter in them that will give you an unbelievable look at the goals. Now, I don't know whether this is because the way they play is unsustainable for 120 minutes, full-on pressure. When the opposition got the ball, we're rushing them, we're at them, and then we've got the ball, we're tsunami. We're all running. So you're all running to attack and you're all running to defend. Can you do that for 120 minutes? Evidence is probably saying no. Now, I'm not saying that's the only reason. I think there's a lot that goes on between the ears that hurt them on the weekend and has hurt them at different points. But I just want to run through some numbers with you. And forgive me if I don't give you the teams that they played, but I can do that if you want. Quarter 2 in round 15, minus 37 points in one quarter. Quarter 2, round 16, minus 39 points in one quarter. Quarter 1 in round 17, minus 33 points. Quarter 1 in round 20, minus 27 points. They're big margins, 5, 6, 7 goals in a quarter of footy. Quarter 1, round 22, minus 30 points. Qualifying final, quarter 4, minus 27 points. And then what we see on the weekend when they give up a run of 5 goals and then a run of 7 goals. So this is a trend, not an event. It's not a one-off. So this is not lost on other clubs. So when you're a known product, so I've got no doubt Chris Fagan would have said, guys, I know it reads poorly on the score. I know it does. But they're going to give us a look at half-time or whatever. It was 44 points halfway through the third.
Yeah, so that we hit time on and the margin was still 44, but it changed instantly after that.
Yeah. So I'm not saying it always happens, but if it's happened, 6 times in 7 weeks, you're a fair chance. So that it's a Giants issue, but you've got to be able to gather and do what you did from the Lions' point of view when all looked gone. And at halftime, so to go back before we go forward, right? So I thought it was a coaching masterclass the way they'd set up this game, Adam Kingsley and his coaching crew. So they went after Zorko with Peatling, 2 goals in the first quarter. They go after Neil with Bedford, and in the end of the game, he's a non-factor, Lachie Neil, to the point where I don't even know if he can move. At the end of the game, he hurt himself. Right at the end of the game, he hurt that ankle again, and he finished with 19 touches, 7 clearances, but only 3 score involvements. So it relied on Ashcroft and those around the edges to do the job. They denied Brisbane their uncontested marking game. They only took 72 marks for the game. So they took the game from control into chaos, which Horny's been huge on. 80% of finals are chaotic games. They're not controlled games. So you've got to be able to play the chaos game. You don't want the chaos game when you're 40 points in front. That's when GWS haven't got that other mode. So Brisbane were disarmed with all this stuff. Now, I'm going to. This weekend's huge, obviously, for all of us. But Geelong don't give you these luxuries. They don't. They don't beat themselves. We keep talking about Chris Scott and how he's able to coach this team and how they embrace the grind of 120 minutes. They won't give you 4 goals in 5 minutes through their errors or their setups. So this is the discussion, isn't it? So I thought they had a great first half in the coach's box and in the setup of the game. But then when it turns, as it always does, they just can't regather and find the handle to get themselves back in the game.
So this was how Adam Kingsley diagnosed it. And once your season is over, there's no need to hide any of it, is there? So the first answer of his press conference, he did everyone's work for them.
Yeah.
And the flaws, they'll get you in finals.
Yeah, so everyone's embraced what we talk about, preliminary final integrity, right? Everyone's now talking about that. We've been talking about this for 3 years, if not longer. So it's not just your flaws. This is what's being missed, right? So if I said to you, why did the Giants win the flag this year? You'd say, well, they played like how? How'd they play, Gerard? You'd say the tsunami. Out and going and running, the slick handballs, no one could catch them. You know, whippets off the halfback flank and gone. So even when they kicked those 7 goals in a row, it wasn't the tsunami. It was forward half stoppage and forward half intercept. So it's not, whilst the returns are big, it's not really what it's not really their strength area. So I don't think we saw the tsunami in full force at all this year. And I kept saying to you, their pressure game is unreal, and if they win it, it'll be because of what they do. Without the ball, I don't really think they're brilliant anywhere else. And this is what the coach is talking about. He's not going to tell us in real time. There's no way last week he's saying, gee, we're just going with the moving the footy. We're making some mistakes here. We got this wrong. He's not telling you that. In a month, he'll tell you that. They were not the same product this year, but they were still good enough to find ways around and absorb their own problems and win games of footy. But they'd been up and down at different parts of the season. So they've got a few things to address, but they've got to get a lot better than what they are right now to win the flag. That's the reality. And the inconsistencies, you can't have that. Because if we're going to talk about preliminary final, you can't be going into a preliminary final thinking, gee, we've got one bad quarter in us. No one's doing that. There's not many flag winners have one bad quarter in them in a prelim. So he's aware. I reckon I've watched this game 3 times.
Yes.
And it's just amazing. The mistakes that they made from their better players, it's just alarming. Just alarming. They were handballing the ball back into the middle. Toby Green just handballing the ball back into the corridor when they're trying to kill the game. They're trying to slow the game down. You got Ashcroft unopposed at stoppages. You got Tom Green played a pretty good game, very good game in fact, and has had a pretty good year, and is going to be a top liner in our competition. But he is the most gettable midfielder in the competition when they lose control of the clearances. Last week it was Heaney that embarrassed him on 2 or 3 counter-punch runs, full-length runs where he didn't go with him. If you look 5:40 to go third quarter, Tom Green doesn't defend, and Ashcroft finds his way all the way to the goal square and kicks that Jackie Chang goal. That is Tom Green's man. I'm looking at the centre bounce at the start of the 4th quarter, Green versus Rayner. Rayner just leaves him, full speed, goes, takes the ball, ends up in the Hipwood goal. And I'm thinking, oh, hey, what's going on here? Mate, they need you. They need you to stand up. So the more you go back and watch the game, the more it's their better players. And full credit to Brisbane. This is where I want to flip it slightly. The work of Zorko, to just say, I'm just going to keep charging. He was playing half back, but he was almost like an extra midfielder. So I'm not sure of who was sliding back and all that sort of stuff that can happen from the coach's box that we really don't know unless you're absolutely on the inside. His preparedness to just keep probing, to keep turning up. You know, the goal where he kicked it from sort of just lateral of the goal square there in the last quarter. He runs for 50 metres from the top of the 50 arc, and O'Halloran's right behind him. But he just gives him that comfortable 3-metre cushion, and it stays at 3 metres the whole way. Now, not at one point does he say, oh, geez, if this ball bobbles, I've got to be alongside him. He never picks up the space, because it's not really what GWS do. Frontal pressure, no worries, and comfortable pressure from behind. It was just, so many things to talk about in this game. You could go for hours.
So the best bit of the weekend is clearly winning. What was it? The equal of the best comeback in 93 years.
Is that right?
Yeah. So it sits alongside the 1970 grand final, and the only one better is a 1931 preliminary final.
Is it the Teddy Hopkins one?
Yep. So monumental in what they were able to do. So what did they do right?
Well, never has a lead been less safe than what it is right now, Gerard. No matter what the margin really, but what they did right, they just got. I just want to give Callum Archie a shout out because when they were battling early, he was the one constant that just kept creating scores, and sometimes you can forget that or overlook that given what happened late. Lockie Neal said it a couple of times now that he couldn't get himself into the game. He couldn't get himself going. How healthy is it to see Ashcroft step up and go crazy at clearance? Although Berry was really good as a midfielder winning the ball back, not necessarily winning it at clearance, but then when the game was in motion, he was able to stay involved. And that's a difficult thing to do. He's a basic player, but when he does the basic brilliantly, he can be seriously effective for that footy club. And they probably needed a couple around the edges to stand up because at that stage, Zorko really wasn't getting into the game. Bailey wasn't in the game. Rayner wasn't in the game. So they needed a couple to sort of get themselves rolling. And I thought it was – I really did think once Zorko was able to do a couple of things and his energy and his passion to lift them really was influential. It was always going to come down to Joe. But Joe has to beat the best contested marking defender in the competition to do that. So that mark at the end, it looks like a really basic one-on-one. But that contest lasts for 2.5 to 3 seconds as the ball's in motion. So full credit to Joe to be able to do what he did. It was just one of those games, Joe. It's really hard to just say this player or that player because a whole host of the second wave lines did little things to just give them an opportunity. Now, Rayner didn't have a great day, but he lays a big tackle on Callaghan that forces a spilt ball. That I think it was Bailey that snaps the goal. Little things like that, like guys that weren't having special days had special moments. So a lot to like, and when they got rolling and started to flow a little bit, just the momentum, you could feel them lift. Now, I don't know if I'm not. People say you're critical of Fakes. I'm not being critical of Fakes. He trusts this group so much that he doesn't necessarily make a lot of moves, and he just says, "No, Rayner will get it right, and Bailey will get it right. I'm not going to put them on ball. They can fight through this or play their role that we've assigned them at the start of day." Charlie Cameron the same. A lot of other coaches, most coaches, would have thrown those magnets around when not necessarily 44 points down because you never know the finite number, but say at 30 points down. We've got to shift this game somehow. How do we do it? Fags tends to trust the group more than any other coach, and it wins the game for them on the weekend. Had it not, the reviews would be savage. Let's put that on the table. They would be, and that's the role of the coach, isn't it? To stand at front of the group and say, I'm prepared to wear that because that's my function in this team. I'm the hirer and firer. I'm the guy that the buck stops with the coach. So there's some bravery in that to absolutely just keep trusting the same, even though you're finding yourself 7 goals down.
Will Ashcroft,
just
he's
amazing.
worthy of his own category, isn't he?
Oh, yeah. He just. I think there's times where he knows. I think he's got a great reading on when to be aggressive and when not to be aggressive. Often you'll just see him just kick a little 15-yarder sidewards and just to a teammate, maintain possession, and he'll roll up the field. He's not necessarily looking to be the greatest meters game player in the competition and drive it forward and pick up some junk sort of numbers. So he had 27 touches and 10 score involvements. Now that's a serious day for a midfielder that's working his way back into footy. It's only his 11th game back this season. He has been building, and to see it just makes such a difference when you've got another mid to throw in. Like last year, they didn't have that luxury, and I think Lockie was banged up towards the back end of last year. So to do what they did was a pretty good effort. But Ashcroft is a beautiful mover. He's one of those handballers that puts you into clear air. A bit like Shane Edwards used to do for the Tigers. Yep. They absorb all the pressure, and at the right moment will take that extra 2 steps to ensure that you're through and gone. And that's why they have such high score involvement impact in the game. So it was great to see him flex and do what he did.
And he's strong. The 2 times that he fought the tackles, stayed in motion to buy himself the extra time to be able to release and set them up. Is the second-year player, the strength of that was really impressive.
Yeah, it was. And so, I mean, we can talk around circles, but in the end, it's Danaher in the end. Yeah, the 2 clutch moments. If Danaher misses that first one, we're probably not having this conversation because the kick-out's going to soak up another 30 seconds. And it just allows the Giants the luxuries of thinking, okay, we've only got to really defend 2.5 minutes. We've only got, they kept their own momentum rolling through conversion. I think they kicked 6 of their last 8 shots. So that hasn't been Brisbane for most of the year. So when they absolutely needed it, Joe delivered.
Right. So the Lions. Oh, I did like this. Oh, I wish to be Joe Danaher. Such calmness. Don't care what people say about me. Then get to return to Byron Bay and stay oblivious to what half of Australia is talking about me because I don't have a TV. 0433 98 11 16 40 Wings temper text. The difference is temper. The debates around Hawthorn are all the wrong things, really. The debate for New Vision Clinics, keyhole, laser vision, next generation technology. They had the point of difference.
Can I give you a debate? Can I throw a wildcard debate in? Yep. And this is why I'm hot on Fakes, right? So if the Giants had if the Lions had fallen 1 point short, which was on the cards, when we got to that stage, it was flipping and flopping on a knife's edge, right? You got Jack Payne on Jesse Hogan for the whole game. Harris Andrews on Cadman and Keefe for the whole game. So their best defender, not on the opposition's best forward. I can understand starting like that, but once the game starts trending a certain way, then you have to do something about it. I mean, this guy took 5 contested marks in the forward 50, Jesse Hogan. He mauled him. He beat him in every way you could script. He beat him at ground level with the loose ball stuff and was able to dish off. He took, I think, 7. What did he take? 7 marks inside the forward 50. So 5 contested marks inside the forward 50. No other player has taken 5+ in any final for 10 years. For 10 years. So when this is happening in real time, you have to say, this is killing us. This is the one problem that we have, and we have the game's greatest solution standing right next to him. Surely, you say, Harris, go and do the job. He's out of control. What did he kick? He kicked 5 and set up another couple. 7 marks inside 50 is the most we've seen in a final for 6 years. You have to do something about this. You can't. If it had gone the other way, can you imagine the feedback about this matchup? So this is not just a Chris Fagan. This is a coach's box decision. There's a lot of heads go into these sort of things. So he was involved in 8 one-on-ones and he outmarked him in 4 of those 8. That's 50% of the time, Gerard. The AFL average is something like 1 in 9. He's done it 1 in 2, 4 of 8. So you just can't. To be involved in 8 one-on-ones is a hell of a number. So if he is playing the support role, third man in, well, where is that? So this is my. I can't get past this. And everyone says, oh, yeah, you're hot on him. Well, this was a move that had to be made. It had to be made at some stage through the game. Even when the Lions had kicked all those goals in a row, who steadied the ship? Hogan, contested mark, chipped the ball across to O'Halloran, goal. Hogan out of the middle, contested mark, goal. He was the only one that was going to rip the game away from the Lions at that stage. That move had to be made. Now, they get away with it, and again, I'll go back to Fags has got unbelievable trust in his players. So he's trusting Payne to get the job done and correct and change his positioning potentially, or maybe ask Harris for a bit more support. All those sorts of I'm sure he's doing all that in the background, right? But that would have been the review today. But they get through, so we move on. But you just can't. Not every losing coach has failed. Not every winning coach has absolutely succeeded. Okay, I understand we're in a results business. But there are things that you have to address along the way. So I'm looking this week. So let's just trend forward. So how do you handle a Jeremy Cameron, and if it's going wrong? When do you pull the trigger on a loser? When it's losing, that magnet versus that magnet, or this system or this style, when do you bail on that? It's just a discussion. I'm not. People say, "Oh, you're going at Fags." I'm not going at Fags. I'm just saying this was an ever-present problem for 120 minutes.
We should actually sign off on the season of Jesse Hogan too. So most goals kicked by a Giant in the season, and an excellent final, which was always on the cards, wasn't it? And
unreal
the way that he'd built his season. So
yeah, and Toby Green, he tried hard on the weekend.
Yes, yeah. There's no question about him trying hard, is there?
Just wasn't. Nothing's happened easy for Toby in the last 10 weeks.
No, just that moment where he dropped the mark going back when it was all his, and then he still kicked the goal, and there he's slapping the turf because he just why aren't I marking that?
He back into a pack in, I reckon it was the third quarter.
Yeah.
I thought, what are you doing? That's not him, right? He's normally clever enough to swivel at the right time and get the crumb and all that sort of stuff. But he put his body on and you just say, that's a guy who's just trying so hard that nothing's happening naturally like it always has. So credit to him for forcing the issue with his own form and getting he had a pretty good game in the end. But he just needed a help, Jesse. Just needed one more player to come with him. Hawthorn have taken us on a great ride, haven't they, the last sort of 15 weeks of the year. They've gathered and have been able to create a brand of footy that's taken them a long way. It's taken a club from the rebuild phase to contention phase as quick as you've ever seen. It's happened in a heartbeat, hasn't it? Yes. So hopefully that's just the start for the Hawks, and they can build on that. They're going to get some great talent in the off-season. We keep hearing about Battle and Barras. And it was unfortunate for them that it ran aground, but it was off their own boot.
They missed a moment in time where the possibilities were sort of yawning in front of them?
Have they missed a moment? Look, I just think Port were really good, like seriously good. So we keep talking a lot. People say, "Oh, the stats," but 60% of your scoring comes from intercept. Okay, so you've got to be strong there. Now, it's a simple term to use, intercept. You can win the ball back in so many different ways. So it's the product itself. It's an audit of your own systems, your defensive systems to win it back, and your offensive system to get it on the scoreboard. So when you win it back, you stop the opposition scoring from their intercept game, and you get to play yours. So it's all about the gaps, the difference. So if you look at the finals we've had so far this year, every team that's won the intercept battle has won the game. So on the weekend, Brisbane plus 20 points, Port plus 20 points. The weekend before, Geelong over Port plus 24 points from intercept. Hawks over Dogs plus 38. Sydney over Giants plus 3. Brisbane over Carlton plus 39. So the system, if you like, is where it sits. So you look at what Port Adelaide were able to do to Hawthorn on the weekend. They couldn't move the ball. We kept talking about it in the commentary. They just couldn't function. Their counterpunch game wasn't there. They scored only 19 points from the defensive half, which is their lowest for about 2.5 months. When the Hawks have scored 27 points or less, they've lost all 8 games. So 27 or less on counterpunch. So that's seeing Impey and Whateley and these guys on the fly, and then those midfielders getting forward into those little voids of space that's created by the forwards retreating back to goal. You know, Joey showed some great vision a few weeks ago on 360, just what it looks like and how it should work. Port didn't allow that. They didn't allow them to slip the noose and get their run and gun game going. So that is a large part of the turnover game off half back. That's where it normally springboards from. So Hawthorn have scored 2 goals on turnover. 2 goals 14 points. So if that's 60% of the scoring, what hope have you got? You can't recover from that. That's their lowest for 12 years. 14 points on turnover, the lowest for 12 years. So you can look at it as a negative for Hawthorn or an absolute positive for Port and say this is brilliance. This is getting – so go back to coaching, right? And I think this is this is Ken's best coaching performance for a long, long time. With this group that's under-resourced for talent on the weekend, missing so many stars, so many playing that are impacted, like Zach Butters that we know about and others that we don't, to be able to be in the face of Hawthorn every time they got the ball and to school them to a level that just had them manic to defend for such a long period and to fuel the fire, and you can go to the Ginnivan stuff and all that sort of gear, using anything, throwing anything on the fire to try and just maintain that rage, which they did and they had to do for every minute of the game, is an incredible performance. So you dip your lid to what they're able to do defensively and basically won the game without the footy. That's a special effort. And that can take you a long way. There's no reason why that's not repeatable. It's difficult, but it can travel. If you're not relying on brilliance to win the game, your game travels. So Ken would be wrapped with that, and he'll be showing all those little things, those little markers along the way. So they won the ball back 46 times between the arcs. That's a huge number for them. They've only had one better result than that this year, and that was the Richmond game. Richmond basically gave the ball back to them. So this is against high-quality opposition, disarming them, and totally taking away their ability to move the ball in any meaningful way. Outstanding work. Hawthorn, so okay, how did they'll be sitting back today saying, how did they do this? How did they get us? Did we not handle the heat in tight? Is it too simplistic? We talked about the Swans being a known product about round 15, round 14. I think after 3 months at the top, like the Hawks have been, teams start to look at them. How can we do this? What do we need to take away? So this is why it's hard to be top of the table for 25 weeks and then win the flag. You have to have a dip somewhere. We saw Collingwood last year do it, and we learnt from that. We've seen Sydney do it this year and then bounce a little bit. It is tough, Gerard. You get picked apart. You get scouted heavily. So what's made them really strong, they'll go again, Hawthorn. They'll be back doing it again next year. It'll have to be slightly different. But full credit to Port for being able to do it.
And where Ashcroft in one game, it was Burgoyne in the other, wasn't it? Is a young player who enhances themselves in a final.
Yeah, and that's a coaching move. You go to half back, and I heard Lee Matthews say, was it last night? He said that he looked small last week. He looked like he was able to be outmarked, and he just looked vulnerable every time the ball went near him, which is true. And then for him to play his own game, a little bit more flair, a little bit more creativity. I still think Willie Rioli is Port's most influential player. Yeah, Horn Francis and those guys in the middle are a different beast. But when Willie's in the game, so when Willie has 6 score involvements or more, they win. He had 8 on the weekend. He destroyed Hardwick, which is a rarity. We just don't see him get beat. And then he got hold of Impey, and he's just such a unique player. That small full forward that's got the step, is clean, and just understands what creates scores. I think Willie was just sensational the other night.
They've got a decision or two to make at selection. We know Todd Marshall is out in the concussion protocols. Would you bring Charlie Dixon back in, or would you go for an able body?
Just every time I see Charlie, I think he's done. And it's sort of sad watching him play. And Blitzarves the week before, he just ran him into the ground. Now, there's not a lot of those types of players out there. I don't know. Have they got someone meaningful to bring in? They're getting pretty deep now on the roster. I don't know if there's a like type to come in. To me, they looked better when they just had Radaglia competing. Marshall was on and off the field all night, wasn't he? So he wasn't really there. I still think they look better when Horn Francis goes forward. So Horn Francis played, I think, 40% of game time forward. I know he cramped at the end of the game. He played 109 minutes of the game, and only twice over the last 2 seasons has he played more minutes than that. But it was only 65% in the middle of the ground. I love it when he's forward. He just changes the forward mix, and it allows Willie to get a lesser ranked defender. So the flow-on effect for Rioli, to me, is more important than the flow-on effect to Radaglia or whoever that next tall is. So the use of the midfielder at full forward, and they've got to explore more out of Rosie at full forward. And they've even got to look at Butters, because those contested ball winners, they just keep winning it. Doesn't matter where you put them. If they put them in the forward line, they'll win it at ground level, and they're goal kickers. So I'm just looking forward to seeing what Ken does with those guys going forward. And I wouldn't be just rushing back to Charlie. But in saying that, we talked about Wines in the ruck. That just didn't pay the bills.
No,
either.
so that's your cause and effect is you could get badly beaten in a 6-minute block with if that's what you have to retreat to.
Could Radaglia do it? He went in there on the weekend a couple of times.
You could just plonk yourself as a body there, which is more likely.
Would you bring him in?
I wouldn't. No.
I think we agree. But it's easy for us, isn't it?
That's right. And you have to bring somebody in, which is your point. So they're already at Lorenz, so he's not quite ready. He's busy, no doubt busy. But at the moment, he has to play, and you're bringing the next player in to be the sub. So they're a long way into their batting order, that's for sure.
So if Farrell is a chance.
Yeah, so that changes things a bit, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. So you maybe they've got the opportunity. But if you're taking a risk on Farrell, can you take another? It's just, I don't know. I think he'll go for the security blanket of Charlie, because he sort of trusts Charlie. He's got more trust in Charlie than the rest of us.
Yeah.
We haven't seen it from Charlie for a long time. But yeah, maybe they value the second ruck role more than we do.
A little bit on the Swans. Spent the weekend in the garage readying themselves. The captain's not going to be there, so they've got a decision to make at selection. The curiosity is they've got this weird record against Port Adelaide. So the strangest result of the season is the 112-point hammering in round 21, and Port have won 8 in a row against them. So Sydney will be overwhelming favourites here, despite the curiosity of that backdrop.
It's strange how that works, isn't it? You can have one team that just has their way with you. The last time they played, they got smashed in the middle. So we've talked about Warner and Goulden and Heaney all year. But they got just brained. And Horn Francis was the major architect of that. Wines was very good. So I had a quick skimming look at that game last night, but we'll dig into that a bit more as the week goes on. But it's just such an outlier. It's hard to trust that game. Regardless of what we show from that game or the numbers we put up, they won't be a real number or influential coming into this week, I wouldn't think.
The 8 in a row is much more like that's over a period of time, and those are the two teams, aren't they? And they're definitely the two coaches.
Yeah, and you can grab onto that if you want to find some confidence. And if you're on the other side of it, you say, oh, it doesn't mean anything. Those games are in the past. Every game's a different game. They're all random events. But I still favour you've been, as you say, sitting in the garage for a week and a half ready for this. The emotion of last weekend, the carry-on. The games that linger post the event are the ones I worry about. So you spend 3 days talking about the post-match. You spend... we're all talking about Ken and the fallout post-match. What were you doing? What happened here? What happened there? And you can spend what should be looking forward and attacking the opposition upcoming. You spend looking backwards, talking about, oh, well, he said this and then he's done this. And you can get lost in that. It can affect your prep. And that's probably why everyone's talking about, from a Port Adelaide point of view, that they're disappointed in Ken, because that distraction can linger. Swans don't have that distraction. They've been narrowing in since the minute that game finished on the weekend. This is our opponent. We've got to go to work.
Have you got any lingering questions for the Swans?
Oh, I just wonder what they'll do with the replacement of Mills. I mean, everyone's saying, oh, well, Adams will come back. Oh, Adams, I don't know. I don't know whether they'll play with the sub because they got the sub role just spot on at the moment. We've talked about that for weeks. We talked about maybe about being Fife for Fremantle in the back half of the year because I think that's a real weapon now. Being able to bring that guy on and get something for the last 15 to 20 minutes when you're probably chasing the game and you need a score or two, whether that's a mid or a half forward. So that it'll just be interesting. And again, we're outside looking in, so we don't have all the information. So we've got to wait until the clubs present that for us. But gee, what a position to be in for Sydney. You're not going to get a better look. Hey, I mean, home final. Win this one, you're into a grand final. Almost full health. It's a great position to be in, and they've been here many times. Well, with 1:38 to go on the clock in the GWS Brisbane Lions game, the ball crosses the boundary line and Lachie Neale twists awkwardly on that left ankle. I know he's got issues with that ankle, and coming into the game he's been taking some medical assistance into most matches, but he does grab at that ankle. I just wonder how good he's going to be, Gerard. A long week to come for Lachie with travel involved, both back to Brisbane and now back to Melbourne. It makes a short prep. He's the ultimate professional, but we're going to be watching this one.
All right, we've got a bit of a futures market going here with an eye toward the trade market at the moment. So Tom Morris was in on breakfast this morning. He broke a story regarding St Kilda's godfather view of Zach Merrett.
St Kilda is preparing a bid to lure Zach Merrett to Moorabbin. There's been no formal contract offer. I can't make it any more clear than that. But the way these things work, and you guys would know this, but just for the people listening, is that the club says to his management, this is what we'd be prepared to offer if we can get him out.
Who's initiated this?
The club's initiated this.
Not Merrett?
Not as far as I know. Yeah, the club's initiated this in Kilda. And then conversations potentially happen down the track. But people close to Merrett are aware of the sort of money that the Saints are prepared to offer. And it's a lot of cash, I'm told. He's not even on $1 million at the moment. He doesn't have full TPP. He's on a front-ended contract, so therefore he's got 3 years left. He doesn't make a lot in his last 3 years. The Saints are trying to blow him out of the water when it comes to the cash.
Is Merrett open to that sort of offer? And if the Saints were aware to make that sort of offer, is there it's possible to blast Zach Merrett out here, which would be an interesting view across more than one club if that was a collective view.
Gee whiz, you just couldn't see it, could you?
No.
You couldn't see him leaving. They'd be scrambling to renegotiate, surely, at Essendon.
That would be your first line of defence would
100%.
just be to renegotiate, because you couldn't spend your money any better.
Let's correct this. Let's correct this. We've got a problem here. Okay, come in. We'll sort this out.
Yeah. So your 3 becomes 5. The TPP issue we're going to give you because you're not only our captain, you're our best player, and nothing matters more than this. You couldn't be spending money in a better place inside Essendon than on Zach Merrett.
If he walks out the door, Gerard, so too is your standard setter. The guy that says, this is how we're training, this is how we're playing, this is the Essendon way, this is Brad Scott's greatest asset at Essendon. They can't lose him. It's not over simple finance. I don't care where you're spending your money and what triggers other people's contracts are hitting and all those sorts of things and who you're trying to lure in the door, you cannot lose this guy.
So I'd be inclined to correct this today. If you were aware that anywhere in the corners of the football world there were the rumblings that Zach Merrett was gettable, I would sort this out today. Long-term deal. How many years do you want to do? Do you want to do 5 or 6? Because we gave Parrish 6, evidently, and we've given top dollar to McKay. Let's sit down and just sort this out right now.
This is the hidden problem of these acquisitions, is the guys that have been doing it the way you want it to have been done for years and have played high-level footy, look at their number and go, hang on, we're paying what for him? How come I'm on this? And I'm the captain, am I? Right. This is one of the secret sources to keeping everyone happy. Can't get this wrong. Just can't. You're right. If they don't fix it today, if this becomes a greater problem and this discussion keeps going for 2 to 3 weeks, it does untold damage, I think.
And Dustin Martin to the Gold Coast. So this was breaking as we were going to air on Friday night. A good spirited debate around that. We've all had the weekend to see it and the positioning of everybody. As we sit here on this means test, do you expect Dusty? Would you guess that Dusty plays for Gold Coast next year?
No, I don't think he does. But I don't mind the idea of it. I don't think it'll happen, right? But what's wrong with having a crack at it? It sounds like it's more him than them. But if he is 75% of the product, and I understand the other argument totally. But sometimes being around greatness and how they prepare and how they think and what they say, and okay, he's not the guy that says you stand here, you stand there, but he's, hey, need more from you than that. He only has to say that to 3 or 4 up there to correct a few things. I think it's worth it. Now, I understand that others don't. I don't think it's not the $1.5 million a year job. It's not. He's coming up on your terms. He's got to fulfill his end of the bargain with performance and those sorts of things. I don't think he's an every week type player. And they sort of need something. I don't know what it is. There's something missing up there. You taste the pasta sauce, Gerard. It's missing. So everyone just goes to salt. It's something missing. I don't know what it is. Maybe Dusty's that something. I don't know.
Yeah. So south of 500,000 it's not even a debate, I don't think.
No. And they've spent money in a poorer fashion than this in the past. So I'm for it because I love our Hall of Famers, our champions being in and around the game for as long as we possibly can have them. And
the one bit I'm never squeamish about is it doesn't matter if it doesn't work.
No.
That Dusty's legacy is enshrined. If he has an ill-fated venture at the end, no one will care.
No.
But we'll obsess about it next year. But in the long run, when we look at his career, it will do nothing to diminish what's been done.
No one's talking about Dougie Hawkins and Fitzroy, Gerard. No one. You can do it, and if it fails, well, you just dust your hands and move on.
Tom Morris. Now, West Coast Premiership forward Jack Darling had a medical at North Melbourne this morning. All things being equally, appears bound for Arden Street on a multi-year deal in the trade period. Would you do that deal?
No, and I don't understand this. I'll never understand this one. I don't see the upside at all. Anyway, I'm actually surprised they're going down this path. Multi-year. God.
He has looked gone for a couple of years, hasn't he? I know that the environment would be different, but it's still going to be initially in a struggling team.
So I understand the argument of the professional, teaching players how to train and how to live and all that sort of stuff. But, I mean, third year Alistair Clarkson, like, aren't we already there? Are we already at that phase? Like, why is it now we need someone to show them how to do this? Really? What have we been doing for 2 years? So I think Luke Parker, different discussion to me.
Yep.
He's been that guy at Sydney. And I actually caught up with him earlier in the year. And we were doing one of the games up there at the start of the year. And I said, mate, you've done a great job. When he was out suspended, so whenever that was, about around 15 or something. He's done a great job with these youngsters, showing them how to prepare and perform. And he's been a father figure to those guys and got them there quickly. So he could have an impact. But he's a different product. He's a killer. He's still performing. Jack Darling's last big game would be when?
It's not in the last couple of years.
Well, that's a long time, isn't it? That's a problem, Gerard.
All right, Seedings to finish off the semi-final means test. Who have you got at 4?
Are we doing all 4?
Yep.
Okay.
And It's hard to sort of shake the formula here. This is pretty straightforward. 4
Well, Port Adelaide, no surprises there.
for Port Adelaide. Salute to what they did.
Well done. Credit to getting to this point. Just think you've exhausted everything on the weekend, and I'm thinking the Swans will be ready for them next week.
3.
3, I'm going Brisbane. Found a way to win in a chaotic game. So there's some real credit in that. And to come from that margin down 44 points into win, they'll take a lot of confidence from that. But how they got there just sits front of mind to me.
I've got Brisbane at 3. But I did hold that view. I might have said to you, as soon as I got back from Paris, is Brisbane's way through was Geelong at the MCG. They should be ready to beat Geelong now. So this is their 3rd go in 5 years, and they've been whacked in the other 2. They should be ready for it now. 2?
Oh, the Cats. I just think that Chris would be sitting back saying, okay, we can do what the Giants were trying to do, but better. Our half forwards understand how to slingshot and spit through stoppage, and we won't get it wrong on Hogan. If we do, we'll make change and we'll have support, and we're defensively a better product. We won't beat ourselves. We talked about giving him 2 weeks into the Port Adelaide game. Well, guess what? He gets another 2 weeks into the Brisbane game. So they'll be ready, and I just feel like this is really opening up for the Cats. If they can get Stewart back into this lineup and in reasonable health and Cameron go crazy, who knows?
Geelong at 2, and that makes Sydney number 1.
Sydney, only missing Mills. That's not going to correct. This is theirs. Right now, this is theirs to win.
Yep, they're on pole. They're the 1 seeds.